This is Jasmine Kara from BNS and Winner Magazine, and I'm joined here by Claire Arena. Claire, thank you for enjoying this collision conference with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Now, we've seen a lot in these last few days. You've been with me through all the interviews, walking around through the booths, and before we get to talk about a bit of a preview on these very, very inspiring interviews, I want to mention our sponsor. So this podcast is brought to you by Sidney Latson Institute. Sidney Latson Institute is a private preschool to grade 6 elementary school in Toronto. It was awarded Most Innovative in Educational Environment by Lux Life for 2022, and that's in no doubt in part to their innovative entrepreneurship and comp sci curriculum. Okay, now Claire, I think you remember that first guest we had was an interview at Collision really well.
Yes.
Alyssa Cohn. Is there anything that stood out to you about that interview?
I just loved how at the end of the interview, which I hope you guys watch, she goes and she basically says that just keep going and going until you reach where you want to be, that spot where you want to be in life, and that's how you'll know where you truly belong, like your passions and everything.
Absolutely.
I carried that to heart because it's very inspiring to hear that somebody finally sees it in the way that I've always seen it. It's it's not giving up, it's just finding whatever works for you until you finally reach that goal and that spot where you want to be at. And that really stood out for me, what she said in that comment.
That's a really great point that she made, absolutely. Now, to me, Alyssa Cohn, of course, I know who she is, but for our listeners, for any of you who have not heard about Alyssa Cohn, she is one of the world's most highly regarded executive coaches. She's coached people from Microsoft, from Facebook, from huge companies. She's so incredibly motivating. Look up her YouTube channel. She's got a really fun rap up there too. And I guarantee you'll be left with so much more confidence. One thing she said that stood out to me was if you can see the path ahead of you clearly, it's not your own path. Something along those lines, and that just made me feel so confident in every bit of creativity I feel like manifesting in the work I do. Because when you're being creative, you're being yourself. You're trying something that you haven't seen happen before, and it takes all the faith you can summon in yourself to continue on that path. And to hear somebody like Alyssa Cohn, who's clearly established her own kind of success, say it does work. There's light at the end of that tunnel, and it's incredibly rewarding. That meant a lot to hear.
Yeah, it's really inspiring and refreshing to hear, especially because it's really that push of encouragement, and it's that it's exactly what you said. It's like a light at the end of the tunnel, because it just reminds us that never to really give up if it's something that you truly, truly want to continue with, and you truly want to push harder. Eventually the results that you want will come back and double that.
Absolutely.
Double that.
Persistence. Then we had the pleasure of meeting with Alex Frankel from Kai AI. Oh, he really stood out as such a charming individual, such positive energy. I know you were a real fan of the product idea itself. So Kai, it's actually a personal companion, an artificial intelligence personal companion that's intended to help those with mental health struggles, I think particularly teens, right? It was servicing. And what were your thoughts about that interview or the idea of Kai?
I thought that it was such a unique concept, just because usually, especially for those who are in need of just something or someone to talk to, just some sort of release, Kai can at least supplement for that. I like what he was saying of how just to be creative and just keep pushing as well. I feel like all the speakers were saying that kind of similar message altogether as well. But I like the fact that AI can be used in so many different ways, but mental health is something that I never actually considered before. And the fact that he had that concept, it was really, really cool, and I want to try it out too when I get home.
The applications of using AI for good. I know a lot of people usually think about it in the movie context, some unknown force that's going to come in and take over the world. But knowledge is power. Learning what AI is, learning that it's the root of it is data science. It's using information for the benefit of people, paired with a real human being.
Exactly.
Now, I had mentioned earlier Alyssa Cohn's YouTube channel, but I don't want to forget to mention she actually has a book that came out not too long ago, From Startup to Grown Up. So if you're on any book vendor platforms, look it up, Startup to Grown Up. I don't know how, I haven't read that yet, but it's been on my must-read list to read that book. We'll probably put up a review on BNS soon as well. Before we move forward, I do want to mention our second sponsor for this show. This show is also brought to you by Farang Martial Arts. Located in Brampton, Farang offers fitness classes, co-ed classes for all ages, kids, women's only classes. There's personal training offered, Muay Thai, and this is led by Raj, who is a community favorite. Okay, now let's look back at that amazing list of co-founders, CEOs we got to interview. Do you remember who we spoke to next after?
I think we're missing somebody, but we can always come back to that person because the next one that I remember is actually
the next person who I think it just segues so well from what we were talking about in terms of combining that social or that moral element in AI and business. Somebody who really pulled these together is Amy Peck.
Oh, yes.
Amy Peck is one interview I will not forget. So Amy Peck is actually the founder of a company called Endeavor XR. XR is mixed reality, where it's either like you're putting on those virtual reality goggles and you're seeing what's around you there, or like Pokemon Go apps. You see a Pokemon in the environment in front of you through your camera phone, things like that. And she finds solutions for companies, really, really big companies, where they can implement XR in their operations. And what gave me just chills was how she's used this technology in a big company right now, which can't mention the name, to pick up on retina movement, right? Retina movement in workers to see when they're tired, when they need a break, to boost their productivity by prioritizing their health. And it's not that element, which is already great, that really stood out to me. It was the fact that she made it a priority to make that data private, where the data was going directly, the information was going to the employees themselves, and they had the ownership of that, the decision to make how they wanted to use it or share it. And that ethical use of data, I think that's something that's going to set apart the companies that really last and grow and the companies that maybe fizzle out. What do you think, Claire?
I agree. Like, it might sound like a small thing, the eye retina, but I find it to be very, very good, because it actually shows that like they care for people's health in that way, that they don't want to like strain their eyes, or they don't want to like, they're taking care of people without even like trying so hard. Like, it's just like something that looks out for the employees especially. So that's why I find it like such a benefit to have. And also I could even see it like not even just like the corporate companies, but like used in anywhere, just like VR, right? It can be like any sort of like company, or just for fun, like the Pokemon Go one, or even like hire like top secret kind of organizations and stuff like that.
You
Like,
can't
it
get
can
into that.
literally-
Not on air.
No. But like, I can see it literally everywhere that it could be used, and it's such a cool thing.
The applications are just endless, and a lot of that comes from bringing knowledge about it. I'm looking at the next guest that we did interview, and that was Erin Harvey. I was really just blown away by how humble Erin Harvey is. What a nice guy. And so for those of you who don't know who Erin Harvey is, he runs the Made of Millions Foundation. So this is a nonprofit, and it's there to help teens and adults who are suffering from mental health challenges, and they offer education services about mental health. They offer a platform for kids or teens, people to just go and, I think, showcase art that helps them express how they're feeling. It's a platform, it's an education resource, and it has such a wide community of people involved in that. What were your thoughts about Made of Millions and the interview with Erin, Claire?
I always thought that like the arts in general, like especially like music, because I come from a music background myself, can be used as a creative outlet. But in the way that he was terming things and like the way that he Made of Millions, it's really such a bright shining example of that. Like, it's such a good creative outlet, but it's an outlet in general where people can feel safe to really talk about their mental health. And I found it really cool because I visited the website as well, and I saw that, you know, there's like weekly or like daily kind of topics, like blog topics that people can definitely relate to. And for once, like, they don't have to feel like they're so alone, and they have all the support that they would need through this nonprofit. So.
Absolutely beautiful initiative, and Erin is clearly someone who leads by example. He shared his own story, which we were so appreciative of, and he talked about how this benefited him, and that itself just made it so clear how anyone could find benefit. Amazing organization with an amazing leader. Speaking of humble leaders that are clearly amazing, our next interview was Jagger McConnell. Moves like Jagger.
I'm sure he gets that a lot, though.
Yeah, he shared a funny anecdote about that song. But, well, first, for those of you who don't know, Jagger McConnell is the CEO of Crunchbase. Crunchbase is a household name in business intel. Any company, if you're looking up any numbers, traffic or value, its history, you're bound to come across Crunchbase. And that may not have been the case so long ago. And Jagger's definitely made a huge impact on how Crunchbase has become so widespread, profitable. It's become a recommendation system for businesses that may be of interest. And he spoke a lot about how, well, not a lot about, but this stood out to me because I'm very interested in education. What shapes you into the leader, into a successful leader, right? He spoke about how not wanting to conform to, a traditional formalized education drove him, the sheer will to work for himself drove him to work so accountably, tirelessly towards the success he's built as a CEO, as a leader.
I 100% relate to everything you and him said because I am on that exact same pathway right now.
There you go.
I'm like in a combination of what Alyssa Khan was saying and then also what he was saying, because he was saying that like don't do what I did because what I did was the opposite of what my parents were suggesting. Mm-hmm. But honestly, he has a point where you just follow your own path and you follow what you really want to do in life. Even if it keeps changing, like mine constantly changes, at least you're going towards something that you want to do for your life, you want to kind of fulfill. You're going for your passions, and I think that's such a great thing. Even if you don't know what it is at the moment, like as long as you keep trying to venture through it, like you keep trying to find what it is that you're looking for or what you want in life, it's better than not trying at all, because if you don't try, like you won't really know, and you'll have like so much questions in your head.
Absolutely. You've got to take the chances.
Yeah.
And I think there's this big misconception from a lot of people that if you become a well-known executive and you're in a huge corporation that's making a lot of money, that you can just sit back, twiddle your thumbs, and everyone else is doing the work. And talking to these CEOs, particularly Jagger, that became so evident as a myth, right? He was telling us how he was up. I mean, we're at a conference. People are in from out of town. You think they'd be just chilling, enjoying themselves, but here's Jagger, this huge CEO. He was up till late the night before, working, and that hard work is no doubt what's translating the strong drive to lead your own way into something that's doable, something that's practical and sustainable and rewarding.
And it's one more point I want to say is that he also mentioned that yes, it is long hours, but it's something that you gotta kind of think about and consider. Like, is the hours gonna be worth it for what you're doing, right? Mm-hmm. If it's something that it's to build a stronger kind of company and for your future and the company's future for you.
Yes. Now, before we speak about our next interviewee, I'm going to mention our third sponsor. This podcast is also brought to you by 4K Production Studio. 4K brings you high-quality commercials, and it's for business of all kinds with express delivery options. All right, let's look at our next guest. I'm just getting chills revisiting these in my mind because it's like reliving the experience of speaking to those who have fulfilled dreams. I'm going to pause a second. I think we just saw Batman walk by. We just saw Batman walk by, yeah. Collision is full of surprises. For those of you who have not been, you are in luck if you live in Toronto because it's going to be back here in Toronto next year, right? And we had a press conference with John Tory and the CEO of Collision, Patty Cosgrave. And the question from BNS, of course, was, hey, what's in store for kids? A lot of our listeners are younger students, teenagers, and elementary age students, and we know a lot that have done incredible things in entrepreneurial sense. And I think that Collision could be a great place for them to find resources, networking tools, and maybe even investors to turn their ideas into something more, something that can enrich our society. Speaking of young entrepreneurs, our next interviewee was supported by a group that does something very similar for 13 to 17-year-olds, the Knowledge Society. And hats off to them. I love what they're doing. They had their representative here, Anaf Khan. Anaf Khan is just 16 years old. He is a neurotech developer at the Knowledge Society. And I gave him some tough questions, didn't I, Claire?
Yes, you did. But oh my goodness, that boy is like he's a light. He is so inspiring. At such a young age, he has accomplished so much, and it's truly admirable to see because for once, I didn't feel like I was too much with all these ambitions and projects and ideas in my head, because even being in this event and hearing all these success stories and even hearing their challenges, it made me it made me know that like everything that I'm doing now is totally going to be worth it, and it is no mistake.
Absolutely. I think you just summed it up right there. Coming to Collision is coming to terms with it's going to be worth it. I mean, this boy, he's 16 years old, and he's already been connected with the resources through TKS to build a solid concept for his ideas, and he's got the network to work on his own startup now that deals with Web3, a decentralized internet, he tells us. If you want to know more about that, I mean, you're going to have to watch the interview. He explains it a lot better than I could, and I've studied data science myself in quite some depth, but there's always some other field to computer science here or there that only someone who's specialized can really tell you more about. And to be able to say that specialist is a 16-year-old, I think that's testimony to what the TKS can do. And I think they've even partnered with the UN for some of these initiatives. So there's real change that you can affect in that organization. Again, hats off to TKS, and thank you to Anna for having spoken to us. Who did we speak to next? I mean, I think I know who it was, but I'm trying to get the order right because okay, yep.
I wish I could remember names.
We were expecting.
I just remember the
Aileen,
face.
but I think she got held up and couldn't make it to the conference.
Yes.
But we do have a very incredible guest who will be interviewed next. His name is Amir Nathur, and he is the co-founder of OutSchool. He's also played a big role at Squarespace and Trigger.io. OutSchool, I think a few years ago, was valued in the billions, and it is an education platform that is, I think, going to really change the way even classrooms function, the way it's become so widespread. That must be the future of classrooms. Not to replace teachers in any way, but to assist them, right? But we'll get to that more when we hear more from Amir. He has a talk happening later, and in the interview we'll be able to ask some more questions. I'm really looking forward to that one. Is there any one particular question you'd want to ask Amir, Claire?
I feel like I would want to ask him what first motivated him to start all of these ideas. Like, what ideas did he initially have, and like how did he continue to push on and grow? Like what? And then there's the other typical question of like, what advice would you give to everyone who is listening as well?
I really like that one. No, you'll see that in a lot of our Winter Magazine interviews, and you'll hear that in a lot of our video interviews too. And it's so open-ended.
Yeah.
That you'll hear advice. Sometimes you'll hear, ways to reach out and connect. And it just really brings out, I think, the character, the real personality, that special spark that makes each founder, each individual so unique. And what sets them apart comes out in that kind of free-form question. And speaking of more unstructured responses, we had a really fun walkthrough, didn't we? Just going around the floor.
Oh, there's just countless of companies, organizations. Like, you'll be like, oh my gosh, I see this one. I've only ever talked about it like a million times. But like they're all here. Like all the successful businesses, the startups, everything is like all in collision right now, and it's really amazing and inspiring to see. And also hearing everyone's stories in the conferences, like everything is just really, really inspiring, and it's motivational.
Very motivating. And yes, there are so many businesses here. I think a lot of people think that, if I want to start a business like this, somebody else is already doing it. How are we both going to succeed? I just should not try. But come to Collision, you'll see about 10 of the same industry type businesses doing something slightly different each, and that slight difference has made each one a successful business or a viable startup that is attracting investors. There is a lounge here, PitchBook. There are startup showcases. There is actual investment networking happening. You just need to get out there, make that connection. And who did we speak to along the way? I think there was somebody who led in, Brenda. She led an incubator. That's an exciting opportunity for any young entrepreneurs listening in the audience. Who else? There was an incredible mascot, a platform. Being a little assertive, it really helps to get your voice out there. When we're walking around with a camera, yes, we're going to go to one booth or another booth that stands out, but let's say you don't have a mascot and you don't get our attention. We had some people just come straight up to us and tell us their pitch, let us know exactly what was going on because they knew we were rolling, and that is belief and conviction in your product that brings the awareness, that gives you that edge, that leads to success. And speaking of successful people, wow, we had an amazing after press conference talk with Brittany Kaiser. Unexpectedly,
so
didn't we, Claire?
Yeah, her story, it was just, I'm speechless right now because that's how amazed I was. It really touches my heart when I see like how much support in such a creative way that I never even thought of is helping the ones from Ukraine, like the victims of the war from Ukraine. They're using NFTs and crypto, right? And if you'd like to explain more about that, but
Sure. Yeah, just to give this some context, Brittany Kaiser is another household name, but if you haven't heard of her, she's a bit of a legend in the data science industry, and she's made such strides. You know, she's featured in documentaries. She's had to face some very difficult choices where it comes to using her tremendous abilities in a morally sound way, and she has really shown what she can do with her talents. Right now, Brittany has led this initiative to fund, to help those in Ukraine by getting crypto donated, by getting NFTs donated. Crypto is, of course, virtual currency, and NFTs are images, digital products, things like that, that are of value that can be sold and traded. And we spoke to Brittany about how maybe even children could get involved on the NFT side of it, because we know some brilliant digital artists, right, that are as young as maybe 5, 6, 7 years of age. And if they can contribute, I mean, I know a few that have been donating their toys for Ukraine. Can they be part of this NFT arrangement? And she was so encouraging of it. She actually recorded a special message at the end of her press conference for the kids to encourage them to join this cause in the way that they could through NFTs. So I just absolutely salute Brittany for everything she's done for those in Ukraine, for the encouragement she's offered the kids as well, and for revolutionizing maybe the way fundraising works. From what I heard, she had within just 2 weeks a large amount of funds reach those in Ukraine. Right, Claire?
do you remember her Twitter handle? Because the link where you can actually donate straight towards her organization to donate those NFTs and anything else, like say you want to just donate like direct deposit, like transfer other forms of income instead of just like NFTs and crypto.
I believe it was at Own My Data, but you know what? I'm going to put the link in this description just so then we get it right.
Yeah, because like that, you can reach out to her for sure, because if you wanted to sort of donate other material things, like for example clothes or like anything for their shelter, like for example a blanket or some sort. She also has a way of like, she has many connections where she can connect you with sort of having that, continuing that initiative for the donation and charity events for
Absolutely,
these kind
yes.
of, yeah.
She was so open to facilitating any kind of charity structure. Claire was even bringing up some music community options, and she's very on board to help those who want to help Ukraine in any way. Now, a huge thank you I'd like to extend to even our Minister of Innovation. Mr. Champagne had just the best news for any of us who are interested in AI. There is a new budget, the second phase of the Pan Am artificial intelligence strategy that was announced, $443 million being put towards the AI strategy and innovation in Canada. What a great place to be. No wonder Collision is being hosted here. Before we reach the end of the podcast, I wanted to also mention our final sponsor for this podcast. That's Canada School Review. The Canada School Review brings a new way to find reviewed schools, view student features, and support enriched learning outcomes as students can come together across borders and participate in stimulating and fun contest events. The CSR most recently debuted with the CSR National Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge for students as young as 4 years of age. So with that, I think we owe the CEO of Collision, Patty Cosgrave, a huge thank you for facilitating everything here. Thank you to Mayor Tory for doing what it takes to keep Collision around. I hope it stays around for longer and longer. Hopefully we do see something for kids next year. And Claire, is there anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Thank you for all the inspiring talks. I know I say the word inspiring a lot, but I just can't say it enough because, like, honestly, they always use their stories and certain words that really make you think, like, wow, all these push and ideas and all the ambition that I have and striving towards them, even though I'm termed as like an overworker, like I work too much or I'm always having business on my mind, I at least know that I'm definitely not alone in this. And I know that whatever I'm doing now, the more that I push towards it, the more that there will be like such a bigger and better outcome. And I have all these people, all these speakers, the organizers, to thank for it because they have really taught me a lot through these days that I've been here for such a short time. And even learning that your unique selling point, there are going to be like so much similarities in other, no matter what you do, but that one different thing that makes you stand out and make you unique, that will really set you apart from everything else. And everything is always going to be competition, but what matters most is that you keep just pushing towards what you really want to do and you enjoy what you're doing.
Beautiful. I think we can quote one of my favorite quotes from one of our Winning Circle members, lawyer Jennifer Donovan. She said, "Don't go with the flow. Yeah. Set yourself apart." And she is just so incredible. So many awards and so much she's done for women's empowerment. It's a great quote, and she's a role model that I think we can all follow in that way. Set yourself apart. Wonderful words. Thank you to everyone at Collision who has joined us for interviews. And this is Jasmine Cara from BNS News and Winner Magazine, thanking our listeners for joining us for this Winning Series premiere podcast. And that's all for now.